Now, right in the very beginning, when Rob and I were partners on this bike, one of the things right in the very beginning that dawned on me, this bike is a sleeper. I rode it a couple of times, and we were riding in Harriman Park then, and I said, this thing really handles the back roads great. Wow. I was really impressed. In fact, I used to call it the sleeper. But as time has gone by, and 16 years have gone by, I've done a total restoration. Rob has limited his riding since his grandson is born, and he's got an executive job now. But the bike lives on, and 16 years. And all of the miles, I'm just looking back now, and I'm thinking there's some funny stories that go along with this bike. I'll try to share some of them on this video. But as a nickname for the bike, the Sleeper is a good nickname. There's other nicknames. But rather than talk about them now, let's get the bike ready. Let's get it pre-flighted. And let's get out on the open road. It is time to ride, and I'm ready. And this bike is always ready. Now, I remember we were on Perkins one day, and there was a bunch of young guys with sport bikes that, not sure how young they were, but we were looking at their bike. They were looking at this bike. It was all black. It didn't have the gold paint on it or the black trim, and they kind of were getting cocky about everything. And they said, that's a plain Jane bike. And Rob said, let's go for a ride. You guys get in front, and my father-in-law videotaped from the back, and we did. I was watching Rob follow these guys. They never got a foot ahead of him. It was really funny. And what they didn't know is we were riding 106 every single day. And Rob knew the road like the back of his hand. Of course, I did too. And these poor kids were struggling to not go into a ditch. At the end of the ride, we all had a good laugh, shook hands, checked out the bike, and Rob said, this bike is a sleeper, but you don't think it's as good as it is until you ride it. What makes the bike even more of a sleeper is this model, the R model, that the Ninja R had bigger fuel injectors. I'm not sure what size they were. They were one size bigger. And that was supposed to be one of the upgrades if you got the Ninja model that year. And it's an '09. And what I thought was funny was a lot of people thought, oh, that isn't going to make much difference. Well, and maybe it didn't. I don't know. But maybe there are other subtle little changes to something. I don't know. But I know this bike is always, every time I ride it, I think, you look at it, especially when it was all black and it had the black wheels and it was a lot of flat black parts, that word sleeper just keeps coming back. And so many people over the years looked at it, underestimated it. Even when Rob was riding a bike, he'd surprise people. a sleeper is not well, it's not really the right word. I think the word keeper is a better word. And it's a bike that once you ride it, you want to ride it more. You don't want the ride to end. It's comfortable. And in so many ways, so many small little ways, Kawasaki got this right. I think the styling is really, really nice. I think the upgrade that I did and the restoration and the paintwork, just like, to me, it's the cherry on the sundae. And I remember back in the day when Jose had the SV650s, the V-Stroms, and I remember so well thinking this bike is pretty much like it, and it's a good match. And I've ridden V-Stroms, of course, and I've ridden even Ray's SV650 that had a lot of mods. It's very, very similar. If you were going to do a track day with a guy with an SV650, you probably could switch bikes in the middle of the day, and they'd be very similar. Now, I always think a thing a lot of people get wrong is they buy the bike for a different use than what they have. They don't do a lot of highway riding, and you buy a bike that's a great bike on a straight line, a drag bike type of bike. Or they buy a backwoods bike and then want to ride on the highway, or an off-road bike and want to ride, I don't know. But this bike does one thing way above everything else. Back roads. Really twisty second and third gear. Go through the gears from second gear out. It really is just perfect there. Now, it's even better if the traction that day is a little damp, a little slippery, right after they salt the roads. This bike doesn't give you any of those little step outs that you get with a way more powerful bike. And you have all the thrills without any of the little excitement that I call it excitement. For some people, it's not really that exciting. Being honest, I do have some friends that have admitted to me privately they spent a lot of money to buy a super fast bike, and they didn't enjoy it as much as they thought they would. It was uncomfortable. It wasn't a bike you could ride all day long. It needed super high maintenance that was crazy. And this bike does so many things well. That's why it's a keeper. You don't get caught up in super expensive maintenance. It doesn't eat the tires for lunch. It doesn't need incredible amounts of maintenance for things that the maintenance is minimum on this bike. And the fact that it's such a simple bike, it's a twin, you can do it all yourself. The manual is very good for the bike and well worth the money you spend for it. right from the very beginning, it was a sleeper. And when I did all of the gold paint on it and the Bentley black, I wasn't sure at the time that this was going to be the bike I'd keep for the rest of my life. As years went by, it just grows on you. It gets better and better. Every person that has ever ridden a bike beside me has gotten off the bike, especially Luciano, and said, holy mackerel, I had no idea it was that good. And it really is. I've ridden it on a track. I surprised myself at Pocono. I was surprised it was that good. And it doesn't have any Öhlins or no secret suspension or anything. It's just a good bike right from the factory. And it's a good all-day bike to ride. And sadly, like every day, it's time to get back to the farm. Now, once I'm back from a ride, a lot of times I'll think, boy, did I ever make a good investment in the restoration? Was it ever a good decision not to get the 250 to get this bike? And Rob agrees. And as years have gone by, needless to say, this bike has just grown on me even more. I enjoy riding it on these back roads. It's like you designed a bike just for those back roads. And I know other people that have similar bikes agree with me 100%. It was a sleeper. It's still a sleeper. And it's always going to be and always will be a keeper. Now, if you're new to our channel, we have a very, very eclectic channel. One of the new features we have now is some of the videos are grouped into groups that you can access all the videos for one category in one mouse click. And it should be very convenient and very handy. Just check out the feature on the main screen playlist. And thanks to everybody for supporting the channel. We appreciate your support, and it makes this channel possible with all the things we do, the painting, the wheels, the polishing. And please take a second or two and hit the like button. And thanks everyone for watching.